Welcome to Game of Roses. I'm Bachelor Clues. You might notice Pace Case is not with us tonight. Pace Case is beginning her 3-week wedding extravaganza, so it's just going to be you and me tonight, and it is nighttime. We did not get a screener for this episode. I had to watch it on TV as night fell, and it kind of brought me back to those early days when Pace Case and I first started this very podcast, and we'd record immediately after watching it, and sometimes watching it took us 3 to 4 hours because we were taking so many photographs and so many notes of the episode that we would record well past midnight. Those were the good old days. Tonight, the good old days are behind us, I think. My initial reaction to the Women Tell All is that usually the players are playing here in both tell-alls for a berth into paradise, or potentially to even make a case for themselves to become the next crown, the Bachelor or Bachelorette. Because there is no Bachelorette this year, one of those things, the biggest of those prizes, is completely removed from the table. And I think we saw that reflected in the level of play tonight. It was incredibly lackluster. There were a couple of interesting plays, I will say, but nothing stood out to me. There was nothing in this tell-all that I think will be remembered in the history of The Bachelor, except one thing, and the players didn't do it. We will get to that, of course. Before I get into this recap, however, I must mention we still have Game of Rosé available, just a little bit of it left. If you want to get some, it's at it's at gameofroseswine.com. You can pick that up. We have a link to it in all of our social media, probably in this very YouTube video in the description, you'll find a link. And we are still doing watch parties at 33 Taps in Silver Lake, although I couldn't make the one for this very show because I had to stay home and watch it. I will be at the one. Hopefully next week we get screeners, and I'll be at the Fantasy Suites, which looks to be insane. That episode actually looks to be really good. But like I was saying, despite all the good play these players have turned in over the course of the season, tonight, I just felt like they didn't feel like they were playing for anything. And it's really because they weren't, unfortunately. So we begin live in the studio audience, portion 1 here. We see shots of players putting on makeup in their dressing rooms. The Paradise Boys are in the audience. That's Jonathan, Hakeem, and Jeremy from Gen Trans season. Women are walking in. Grant's getting ready. Carolina is wearing a jacket, we see, that says crazy and evil. Now, this was my first error. Not on Carolina, on the producers. Why would you show us that jacket before she stands up where she's sitting in her chair and turns around to reveal it? It completely takes any momentum, any gravitas, any power that reveal play of that jacket is going to have is just fucking gone. They throw it away in the first half second of the show. I could not believe what I was seeing. I was like, oh, well, clearly they have like a much bigger thing planned for that later, right? Nope, it's just the reveal. But they've completely invalidated it from the very beginning. Hard for me to believe, honestly. It's just a very simple editing choice that was not made correctly. We also see somebody else getting ready, Linda, the no drama llama. And I know we're going to be seeing her again. And indeed we are. In the studio, then we see everybody's clapping, a standing ovation. DLP emerges. We see our first sign in the audience. It's a sign that 2 people are holding up with their heads. There's a picture of Grant in the middle. There's a picture of Dark Lord Palmer in the middle. And there are 2 cutouts on either side, and people are putting their heads through it. And the sign reads, Jesse's #1 fans. And I'm like, okay, this is inventive. Then we see another sign right after that. This sign has a picture of Grant's head, and it reads, here for the Grant reasons, #4TGR. And it has a rose on it. The sign looks something like this. If you're just listening to this, you got to watch this on YouTube. The sign looks something like this sign. That's correct. I am holding the second sign of the Grant Ellis Bachelor Season 29 Women Tell All. I have it. I procured it. For those of you who don't know, and you should know by now, we do watch parties at 33 Taps in Silver Lake every Monday night. Last week, 2 pit dwellers came to me and said, we just attended the Women Tell All. We would like to give you the sign. Among other things, they regaled the entire crowd with their experiences at the Women Tell All, and it was a sight to behold, to be sure. But I was gifted this for my museum. This is that sign. It is literally that sign. And a bit of lore about the sign. The rose on the sign was a rose that they got from a prior watch party. So in one way or another, Pitt, everybody, we were all there when these two pit dwellers held aloft the sign. Can't thank you enough. But what I can do is give you my Jorge Moreno Bystander of the Week. That's correct. The two pit dwellers who held aloft this sign in honor of our beloved game, and indeed of the pit itself, and transported us all there in spirit on the astral plane. You were my Jorge Moreno Bystanders of the Week. I would even go as far to say you're my Jorge Moreno Bystanders of the Year. With the signs out of the way, DLP welcomes us to the Women Tell All. Tonight, your favorite women are back to rehash it all, but there's one important question that remains. Will Grant find love? DLP assures us that there's never been a bachelor who's had such a difficult time making his decision. This is a lie. We know Bachelor season 7, Charlie O'Connell, literally didn't make the decision, decided to date both women after the final episode, after the final dates, after the final rose was to be delivered. He said, let me go ahead and date him for another 2 months. Then he made his choice live at that after the final rose. So clearly this is a lie right out of the gate, dismissing the rich history of our beloved game. He then promises we're going to get some never before revealed truths as well. Should we start spilling some tea? And I was like, some truths? That is a weird phrase. This must be an ad for something. That's all I thought. And then indeed, we found out later it was. You know, I will say this about this Women Tell All. Might not have had the fireworks we wanted. Might not have had the great play, the heightened level of play that is fueled by desperation to reemerge in some part of this franchise. That felt gone to me. But there were interesting things. That ad that I'll get to it. I'm getting ahead of myself, but the ad they did for that Snow White movie was bizarre to say the least. All right, we get the intro. Here's who's going to be in our Women Tell All. Back row, Janae, Beverly, Alicia, Vicky, Ella, Chloe, Allie, Joe, and Rose. Front row, Parisa, Bailey, Natalie, Carolina, Alex, Serafina, Dina. This is usually about like this. It's almost in the order they were kicked off. There might be a few switch arounds. If somebody, made a really good play that got kicked off and should be in the back row, maybe they'll move them to the front. But generally speaking, the front row are the most recently kicked off people. Some of the other standouts, and then your back row can basically be anybody who might have even had an interesting group date reaction or something like that. All right, DLP throws to Rose for her first reaction to Grant for the first time. This is a time-honored tradition. DLP always does this. So did DLH. The first words they speak are always to one player, and it's always a question about what was it like when you stepped out of the limo and saw Grant for the first time. And it's always about how hot they are or how cute their smile was, generally speaking. But Rose says she blacked out, but he made her feel comfortable. That's another kind of thing. I was shocked. I didn't know where I was. It was like I was in another dimension. DLP then asked Chloe about becoming a fan favorite, and they cut to the audience to see two people wearing Chloe head t-shirts. That is an homage, of course, to the t-shirts that Zoe was firing with a t-shirt cannon on night one over the mansion into the backyard. Chloe got one of these. It landed in her lap, she says, and she just said, you put it on. When life serves you lemons, she says, you put on the t-shirt. We cut to the audience and we see two people wearing the Chloe head t-shirts. I loved this. I don't know if those two people made those t-shirts or if they were given by producers. But again, this sign, I have 100% confirmation, was made by pit dwellers and brought into this event. So I'm buying that maybe somebody made those shirts and showed up. Totally possible at this point. DLP notices Carolina's jacket at this point. She stands up and shows everybody there's some writing on it. She calls them quotes from the Carolina show. And you see, what's your question written kind of on the pocket of this jacket, and on the back in big letters, crazy and evil. We've already seen that. Like, this play is brilliant. The jacket itself, the play is so brilliant that it was my play of the game. She is the only one who seems to have come prepared to embrace the person she is presented as in the nation. She is wearing clothing with her own catchphrases on it. And one of those catchphrases is, I'm crazy and evil. That's a villain. That's somebody embracing the villainy. And that is what we need in this franchise. It's what we need in reality TV, frankly, at this moment. And so she's doing it. She's doing her part. But the producers completely undercut her. They showed the jacket before she turns around and shows it right here. I just don't get that. It's a mistake. This moment would have had like far more impact if it would have happened right then, because it's like it kicks it off. He's like, Carolina, you've got a crazy jacket on. She's like, that's right, I'm the villain. Everybody fight me. It would have been a much more kind of narratively natural moment to have it. And then the show starts. Instead, it's like, oh yeah, we already saw that. So DLP then commands us to grab our popcorn as we watch a recap reel. We see the rivalry between Allie Joe and Zoe, Carolina's makeout on the group date, Carolina doing Rose dirty, you did me dirty. I mean, that is probably the moment of the season. Carolina sitting out at the Scotland group date. We see Carolina versus Dina moment on the stairs, and it ends with the crazy and evil stair walk. Like, should have played that, then gone to Carolina. Actually, remind me, oh yeah, she said crazy and evil. Now she's wearing the jacket. They've just done a very bad job of this. The producers, I mean. DLP then says, there's a lot to digest. Zoe isn't there. She's still vying for Grant's heart in this moment, he says, which is a lie. The season's already shot. She's not vying for anything. She already has the heart, or she don't have the heart. That's already done. DLP asks Beverly if Zoe pulling Grant in that pregame basketball child army group date was what put a target on her back. And Beverly's like, yeah, she pulled him for an hour. And he accuses her of not coming here to make friends, she says. And she interrupted the other players that night. Allie Joe jumps in and is like, it wasn't just interrupting us. Those kids had to take time off school. She's now throwing to Zoe a in consideration of children's time attack in this, but it's also post-play, many months post-play. Interesting attempt here. DLP says it wasn't just Zoe, though, and Allie Joe. It was also Zoe and Serafina. DLP mentions the short dress comment Serafina made. Serafina says it was wrong to make that comment. She takes accountability. She says it was a high-pressure situation and they're good now. Zoe's misunderstood, she says, and she asked for Zoe to get grace. DLP says Carolina was also the cause of drama. So we have these two big chunks where he's talking to Beverly and to Allie Joe about a person who is not even there. So can't defend herself, can't go on the offensive. Just a nothing. It's just nothing we're watching here. DLP then says Carolina was also the cause of some drama, and he specifically talks about the moves on stage. Did she know she was making waves in that moment? She says no. At that point, I was the only person who hadn't kissed him yet, and then everybody on stage is like, I didn't kiss, I didn't kiss, I didn't kiss, I didn't kiss. So they're all contradicting her, and it's already like you can just see the dynamic. It's going to be the group against Carolina, and that's basically what it is all night long. The game never really changes from that. DLP asked Rose about the conversation she had with Carolina off camera, and Rose says they were roommates. Carolina wanted to know everything Grant said, and she ran with it. They were laughing at the end of the conversation. She didn't think that she would go back to Grant and say this thing about Grant said, I was thinking about Rose while he was dancing with Carolina. Carolina says she wants to have the combo when Grant is there. It's a lot of responsibilities on him too. Bailey jumps in. She's like, it was the wrong time to do it right before a rose ceremony. You had Rose in pocket. They're all yelling now at this point. There are 4 or 5 people talking. I can't make heads or tails of it. No one can. Carolina, exasperated, yells, can I please just finish? And then DLP's like, right after commercial. And then we come back. DLP goes back to Carolina. What did you want to talk about? And she says she wants Grant to take accountability. She went to him from a place of we're going to protect each other. Beverly cuts her off. Carolina issues a can I speak play defense. It works. She reclaims the floor. Carolina says she didn't mean any harm by it. She was just telling him what was being said. Dina tries to get in a word. Carolina says, can I finish? Oh my God. It is a stonewall defense she's putting up here. She has taken control of the floor, erected a castle around it. No one will get it until she is done. Serafina says, you have to let other people speak. Carolina, no, steamrolls her. Keeps talking about Grant's reaction to her statements. Doesn't even acknowledge Carolina's or Serafina's attempt to navigate into these choppy waters of this conversation. She keeps talking about Grant's reaction to her statements, and then Dina says, you just did the same thing to Rose that Grant did to you. Huge audience applause here. I still think Carolina won this, if for no other reason than no one else was talking. Carolina thinks they all want to blame her. They do. Vicky says he's dating 25 of us. What is he supposed to do? He's going to say things that people misinterpret or sound bad or whatever. Then again, they start talking all over each other, DLP, and then it's like, hey, Dina, let me ask you about leading the charge against Carolina in Scotland. She says Grant was using her as a broker of information about Carolina. And Dina says she stood up for Carolina in front of the women and Grant, but she played herself by talking about Carolina too much. So she's doing this kind of post gameplay analysis of the plays she was making during that phase of the game, realizing she was making errors everywhere. I think we gave that our error of the week when she did that tattle. Carolina then doesn't think that was fair. She says she wasn't sitting by herself on purpose. And Serafina's like, yeah, but you weren't positive. Carolina then says Dina was giving her the cold shoulder the whole time. And she says Serafina was being mean to her. Dina says, are you saying we put you in a bad mood? Carolina says, yup. And then Natalie says, little things just built up. DLP interrupts again. He says, Bachelor Nation has some questions about Carolina and Dina's relationships. It looked like they buried the hatchet, but the feud is reignited through social media, and DLP throws up on a screen in the show some of their social media posts. Now, we've seen this before. The first social media I believe we ever saw, I could be wrong about this. But I want to say, it is in Rachel Lindsay's season. This guy named Lee Garrett, he had a bunch of problematic racist tweets, and they put some of them on that same screen and made him answer for them. I want to say that was the first time. I could be wrong. But now we get not just some tweets and comments on Instagram posts. Here we're seeing full video of Instagram Reels and TikToks. Dina, she's got one where it reads, when you defend the one person nobody else would just to get played the next week. Then Carolina's reaction post that says, seeing someone use this sound as if I don't have screenshots of our conversation as evidence. Then Dina responds with another reel that says, I tease next week's preview. And she responds with a threat, interesting tactic, but on brand, I guess. And then we come out to the audience. So they essentially are just taking you through a parasocial feud that has now been absorbed into the game. And this is the most modern I feel like this show has ever felt. I am watching a TikTok reel or TikTok and Instagram reel duel in the TV show that happened semi-recently in social media. We all watched that happen. I felt like that was a good move, and it was presented well as well. So we come out of it, and Dina says, we were okay after that. But then Dina started to see the same pattern of deflecting accountability and blaming other people. So she stopped responding. When she posted that video, she used trending audio. She didn't expect it to get the attention that it did. Are you posting it on Instagram? You think 2 people are going to look at it? You want as many people as you can possibly get to look at it. That's why you put it on social media. She used the trending audio. She says she didn't expect it to get the attention that it did, and she didn't think Carolina would respond with a threat. She claims it was a joke. Carolina says, well, I took it personally. They both agree that there was no reason to be cool with each other after that. Dina claims that her video was only about the 4 corners of the show, and Carolina's took the beef out of the show into the real world. This is pro wrestling, ladies and gentlemen. We are there. We are through the looking glass. Dina is saying what happens in the ring is fake, or is at least admissible. It's a different thing. The 4 corners of the show, as she put it, it's what is in the game. When you take that beef outside of it, it's a whole different thing. You're not really in pro wrestling mad at the villain in real life who just beat you in the ring. You're buddies after the show, and you're like, oh, we put on a good show. Dina essentially is saying in subtext that is what matters. The 4 corners of the show. That phrase, to me, I've never heard anything like it in Bachelor, certainly not in the modern era. It is a recognition that the show is fake, that the show is not real, that the emotions they're feeling, the anger and animosity that they're feeling toward one another in the show cannot and should not carry outside the show. She was referencing what happened in the show. You took it outside the show. I was blown away by this. And ultimately, we see this come to Carolina going, how did I play you, Dina? And Dina goes, I don't care how anyone takes this, but I bought you another week in Madrid. Open gameplay speech couldn't be more for the wrong reasons, and it was my Error of the game. Usually I love open gameplay speech, but when you do it in service of trying to defend your own forte or R-ness, it doesn't work. It's like the opposite thing, you know? It's like trying to put out a fire with fire. You can't do it. And I think, I don't know how she will be perceived after this episode, but to me, there were a lot of these little things in her, like the intricacies of how she was speaking, words she was using, and this thing, I bought you another week. And she knows, she's like, I don't care how anyone takes this. That means I know somebody's going to take this badly, but I got to say it anyway. I bought you another week. And she's basically saying, this thing we were in was a game to see how long you could make it. And what I did stupidly bought you another week. I helped you in the game. That is what she is saying here. I loved it. But again, I think you just can't do this on Bachelor. The whole audience is shocked by it. Gasps. DLP then says he sincerely hopes they can reconcile. When we come back, Alex is in the hot seat. Carolina then produces tears for the first time and walks off the set. Gets up and walks off. That's the last thing we see. This would have been my play of the game had she not worn that jacket. My God. But generally speaking, if you walk off, we know you're coming back, and that's going to get you more screen time of the walk off and the comeback. It's a complete narrative in itself. So you don't even have to say anything or interact with anybody. You're just telling a small little story. She's leaving for some reason. Now she's coming back. They didn't really address why she left, but maybe they did. And that's on the cutting room floor for who knows what reasons. Nonetheless, we then go to portion 3. DLP says Carolina has decided to step out and take a break. We'll keep you updated there. We'll keep you updated on the whereabouts of the people that we're forcing to be here against their will. Then we get our first hot seat. Alex, DLP says he thinks her limo exit was one of the greatest of all time. DLP makes her watch her own reel. Then the hot seat begins. How does it feel to see that? That's generally some version of that question always opens every hot seat. How does it make you feel to watch all that back? And then she says it's hard for her to see herself upset, but no tears here. It was bittersweet. She explains that when she got the Fimp and the first date, she thought she was going to go to hometown, smooth sailing. They had a good connection, but it was hard keeping up with the other relationships. DLP says he knows she wanted to avoid the drama. We get a weird shot then that seems digitally pushed in where we just see a head walking past the camera and, oh, it's Carolina. She's returned sitting in her seat. So she at least gets the screen time that just completely bisects Alex's hot seat. DLP then asks her when she felt that the drama was finally affecting the Grant relationship. She says, it was in Scotland. There was a dark cloud. DLP says Bachelor Nation was shocked when you went home. She says she was too. DLP asks her how she feels about seeing Grant. She says excited, nervous. She thinks she'll say something funny. DLP says he knows she didn't end up engaged, but maybe you found another kind of love on this journey. And she shoots DLP a what the fuck are you talking about kind of look. That was not my faceplay of the game. It was very close. She produced 2 faceplays that were almost my faceplay of the game, but they weren't. Somebody beat her, unfortunately for her. And then they bring out Linda the No Drama Llama, and Linda the No Drama Llama was my creature of the week. Somebody in the audience is holding up a Linda for Bachelorette sign. And that was a sting to me personally. Am I to believe that these people in that audience don't know that there is no Bachelorette anymore? Am I to believe that maybe the producers made that sign on purpose to continue with the idea that Bachelorette does exist? There's a subtext in this sign that is extremely painful to anybody who follows this closely, I feel like, because we're not getting a Bachelorette. I would love a Linda the No Drama Llama Bachelorette season. I would love a Bachelorette season of any kind, but we are not getting it. Nonetheless, Linda, you have my Creature of the Week award. You have done expert work. I don't know if that is actually Linda. I can buy it because they shoot at the mansion is in the LA area. They shoot the Women Tell All in LA. Linda the No Drama Llama could be some, animal rental place llama. I could see that is the exact same llama. Even if it's not, whoever these 1 or 2 llamas were that played Linda throughout the season got a lot of great screen time, and you got to share a hot seat with Alex Godden, who was a fantastic player this season. So congrats. We then go to portion 4. DLP brings up Serafina for the next hot seat, and DLP says Bachelor Nation was shocked when you were sent home. And then we get the Serafina reel. First question, how was it to watch back your pain? He says. She produces no tears again. So far, these hot seats are getting upstaged by Linda, the no drama llama. Serafina says she prides herself on being a matter-of-fact person, and she got a lot of validation from Grant. It was a slow burn, but he gave her validation. She was shocked. DLP asks, what was it about Grant that made her fall in love with him? Well, he made her feel confident. She was always a second choice in past relationships. She doesn't jump off bridges just for anybody. Or no, she says, I don't jump off bridges for people I'm willy-nilly about. She wasn't willy-nilly about Grant, that's for sure. Serafina says her mom isn't getting any younger and she wants her mom to see her happy with someone. She doesn't know what it is. She has a big heart and a lot of people don't see that. She loves so hard. She wants someone who sees that in her. DLP calls her a strong person. And he's also close to his mom. So they have a mirror mother relationship play here going on. And that makes him think about her a lot. Serafina voiced a concern on the show that no one voices. You were nervous about your mom seeing you kiss on TV. What did your mom say about the makeout session with Grant? And Serafina's like, she loved it. This is her favorite show now. My kissing power has made my mother a Bachelor fan. DLP says he contacted her mom, and here's what she had to say, and boom, we throw to a video of Serafina's mom, Velma. She says, I did watch it, and when I saw the kiss, I turned away, then I laughed. I'm proud of the woman Serafina has become. She loves her and is always watching. Big cheers. And DLP and Serafina both agree she should be on Golden. DLP thanks Serafina. Dina's up next. Then DLP does a commercial here. He ends this segment. Before I get to this commercial, these first two hot seats are boring as hell. They're just like, yeah, it was a great experience. Everything's fine. I'm not even crying when I watch my own footage back. There's nothing going on in this. It's absolutely boring. Then something does happen that is not boring. DLP does a commercial for the next season of Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. They cut to Hakeem in the audience as they played this teaser. And Hakeem Moulton delivered my
face play of the game.
We're talking a full eye, full mouth aperture, like, I can't even do it. I mean, he's a singular kind of talent. My apologies to Hakeem. That impersonation was terrible. It was subpar. You deserve better, but that's the best I can do. I think that his ability with faceplay is at like an all-time great level. And I am glad that he will be on Paradise this season to get to see him faceplay some more. But these little pops they put in him, they did it in Jen Tran's season as well. That's when they first started doing his kind of like strange relationship with the Secret Lives of Mormon Housewives. That he's like their in-house facial reaction player to teasers primarily of their show. But here he was so good at it that he swept. Nobody came close to that faceplay, in my opinion. And that literally is one of 3 shots that you see of him the entire night is the head in the box. And he took faceplay of the game out of that box. Congratulations. Hats off to Hakeem Moulton and Goldie the Spider, wherever Goldie might be. Portion 5. We're back in the studio. DLP introduces Dina as the Ice Queen who might have melted for Grant. I don't know, but he says self-professed or something. He makes it clear we all know he's not calling her an ice queen. She called herself that. So we're going to do it now too. Everything's cool. Hot seat number 3, Dina. DLP says, he knows she always put her walls up, but it looked like she opened her heart up in Chicago in her hometown. And then we get a Dina reel. DLP asks, how was it to watch that back? Once again, 0 tears here. She says she remembered having that conversation with him, the breakup one, and not processing it. She hides her emotions. Her walls are up a bit. And then later on, she processes and thinks about the emotions. She says the issue with her family made her uncomfortable because she wanted him to meet her family. She didn't want to deal with it head on, and they didn't show up for her. He was asking her how it made her feel, and she dodged the question. Grant, she says, he was asking me, how does it make you feel that your family's not here? But I dodged the question. Then when she watched it all back, she heard that he said it was disappointing he didn't get to meet her family. And that was like a make or break for him, but they never talked about it in that capacity. When he was breaking up, he even said it wasn't because of her family. But Dina thinks that it should have been because the family is a big deal. You should want to meet the family. And if it doesn't come together, you should be curious enough to be like, hey, what the fuck's going on? DLP asks how she thinks it would have been different if he would have met her family. And she says it was ultimately her decision to not have the family be a part of it. It was mainly her brothers didn't want to be on the show, didn't trust the process. They say the word process here a couple of times, but the other half of the family was down with it, but she didn't want to have to convince the brothers of the process or maybe have like a rift between the family on camera about like how the show is terrible and people can't actually find love in it. interesting play. I think for Dina, this is like a hidden error. We never knew that it was her decision to not have her family there. I think this is the exact kind of family you would want there, because then it becomes a matter of, if he kicks you off because of your family and we see why, then it's like a Desiree Hartsock situation with her brother calling Sean Lowe a playboy in season 17. And there's no fucking crown though. It doesn't matter. You're right. It doesn't matter. She should have done it all. It doesn't matter. There's nothing to play for. To be able to, DLP then says, do you regret it? And she's like, I do. DLP asks her about the Ice Queen title. He says she's an accomplished attorney. He thinks a big part of that is that you always have to be confident. He compliments her on her courage at being vulnerable with Grant. She says she's an Ice Queen for the people she won't let in, but not for the other people. She isn't a stone cold person to everyone. To be able to do that with Grant in such a short amount of time was special to her. Letting her walls down was special as well. DOP says he hopes they can be vulnerable, that she can be vulnerable in the future. And he knows that guy is out there for her. Maybe Paradise. Maybe he's sitting in the audience. Maybe it's Akeem Moulton. DLP then says Carolina is the next hot seat. All right, so we're all strapped in. We're ready for Carolina to walk out in her jacket. DLP then says in Portia 6, lover or hater, one thing no one can deny is your chemistry with Grant. He's, of course, talking about the R&B group date where they all had to sing and dance, and she mounted him on a couch and made out with him in front of everybody else. DLP says he thinks it's safe to say it was a hell of a ride for you. She was upfront about her feelings and emotions, and that's why he thinks Grant liked her. She is the first player here to tears in the hot seat when she's rewatching her reel. When it gets to the part where she plays her epilepsy PTC, she produces tears in the box and on the show. This is how it's done, ladies and gentlemen. Carolina really was the only player who was making plays when the opportunities presented themselves. There, especially in the tell-alls, there is an extremely rote pattern of production where you are granted certain shots, certain screen time. If you're in a hot seat, you're not only going to get the screen time of your reel being replayed, but your head's going to be in that little box rewatching it. You need to be emotionally reacting to seeing your own reel in as many ways as you can. And Carolina did great. She laughed during some of it. She produced tears during some of it. But that's basically what you want to do. You want to be laughing, crying, have some shocked, some embarrassment. Oh my God, I can't believe I said that. You know, that type of shit. You just want to be running the range of emotions. She's the first player to actually do it, in my opinion. DLP says, I was watching you watch it back and there was a roller coaster of emotions. DLP even says it. Here you go. You had one of the fastest connections with Grant. She says she felt an initial spark. She came into this thinking Grant was emotionally intelligent and he would have a good heart. She didn't know if he would have the personality to match it. She was surprised to see how quickly they were best friends. She loved that. That's what she wants in a relationship. I don't want just some dude. I want my best friend. DLP says you could see that on the Las Vegas date. When you played your epilepsy PTC, Carolina then produces more tears. So she produced tears when she played the PTC. She produced tears when she watched the PTC back. She produced tears when another person even said the PTC. It was a Dark Lord, but still, absolutely brilliant. Dramatic pause here. She says in her real life, she comes across confident. She's an open book, but she doesn't play this PTC with everybody because some people haven't reacted or treated her the best when she reveals it to them. She's hidden it from people. She's tried to get them to appreciate her before they learn it so that when she says it, it's more likely they'll be okay with it. But she wanted to be upfront with Grant, and he was so kind about it. But she was so scared leading up to it. And that's why she thinks she might have spiraled out of control. The fear caused by the knowledge that she's going to have to play this PTC. She says it set her back mentally to have him not open up and wonder if it was all for nothing. DLP then asks if she regrets her decision to tattle on Rose. She's like, I feel bad for what it meant to Rose. When it comes to my relationship with Grant, though, it was either that or leaving. She thinks Rose wasn't just pulling it out of thin air. Grant said a lot to her that was concerning. She had to clear some things up with him or she would have had to leave. So she basically paints this picture of like, yeah, I know that I kind of tattled on Rose, threw her under the bus, however you want to put it. But if I didn't do that, I was going to have to leave. Back was against the wall. It was my last resort, my only option. DLP then asks how much she thinks the other women impacted Grant's decision to send her home. She says a lot. Carolina says she never punched down, never commented on their occupation or dress length. And they shoot to a shot of Serafina right when she says that. So she's getting these little digs in him. She's like, I never punched down. I never did this. I never did that. Doesn't say other people did, but we all saw this season. We know other people did. And she says she thinks some of the other players need to take accountability. And Dina says, you don't even know what the word accountability means. Another big applause from the audience. For as bad as Dina was in that 4TWR moment that I loved, don't get me wrong, I'm looking at this as a game. And I think it made her on a subliminal level when she was like the squared corner or whatever, or what did she say? It was the four corners of the TV show, four corners of reality TV. When she said that, there's something like the audience clocked it. You could hear. And when she was like, and I don't know how you're going to take this, but I got you another week. The audience didn't like that. It made her a villain. That was a big error. Again, I loved it, but it was a big error. Here though, I mean, she's just getting big laughs. I don't know. I had a very hard time with who the MVP was, on this night. So then we begin portion 7. When they come back, ABC puts up on screen a graphic promo down in the bottom left corner, at least it did here in Los Angeles, for Guy Gansert guest appearing on General Hospital. My fucking brain melted. What? It's like on Golden Bachelorette. If you're listening to this podcast, you probably already know this, but if just in case you don't, on Golden Bachelorette, there were 2 players that had restraining order things in their lives, either a restraining order granted against them or somebody asked for a restraining order against them and then dropped it. One of those guys was Guy Gansert, the runner-up on Joan Vastos' season. And they are putting him in General Hospital now. ABC is just putting him in that show. That's a network decision. 100% a network decision. Maybe there's somebody on General Hospital that's like a Bachelor fan that thinks it's funny, like a high showrunner, maybe something like that. I don't know. But that's a network decision. And they for sure know about the controversy of his restraining order. For sure do. And they're just putting him in that show. And when I saw that, I was like, shit, is he the next Golden Bachelor? Like, I don't know. And I hope not. But it is like a little bit of a testing of the waters or something, it felt like to me. Let's put him on the network and see what the reaction is. I don't know. I'm just hoping it's Charles L. or Jonathan or even Mark Anderson. I would be okay with. I think that Jonathan and Charles L. are going to give you the best season, though. One of those 2. Anyways, just had to mention it. Carolina then is still in the hot seat. Dina gets to continue. Accountability is not saying you're sorry that Rose was upset. It's apologizing for what you actually did. The audience, again, applauds. Dina has all these good applaud moments. Unfortunately, that error is just like, I think when she goes to Paradise, she might be a bit of a villain. They were calling her actively Ice Queen, per her own words, granted, but still. The whole show was about how she was an ice queen and then how she was fighting with Carolina. And she said some very for the wrong reasons things that like exposed the game of it. You know, it was like, you can't know that yet. I feel like you can't outwardly express that yet in love shows on reality television. Anyways, the audience applause here. Carolina says she has already apologized to Rose countless times for her actions. She told Rose, "What can I do? Should I have another conversation with Grant?" And Rose says, "You only apologize because Latia came after you." Carolina says, "They had conversations in their room by themselves right when it happened." She finds it comical that when it all happened, you were saying you were mad at him. Dina says, "Rose is nice. We've all tried to understand you." Carolina says, "Rose did that. Parisa did that, but you didn't do that." And she accuses Dina of chasing her around the castle, which Dina denies. And Dina goes, "I know you love the idea of people chasing you, but people are not that obsessed with you." And then Carolina's like, "Oh my God, that's so clever, Dina." And like mock claps. That to me was like the best fight moment that we had seen. It was 2 like really all-star players just going head to head and not giving a fucking inch to each other. No one is moving. They are just like, it's like in an anime when you see the 2 most powerful characters in whatever show you're watching. Finally, they're going to fight. And they do that one thing where they just like throw a punch or an energy ball or whatever. And it's the 2 things meet right in the center and just like blow up a world. That is what that moment was to me. If you don't watch anime, my apologies. Dina says, Dina says about this thing, chasing her around, the clapping. And then DLP says, Goodbye seemed genuine. The goodbye seemed to genuinely upset you. And she says she was blindsided. And the worst side was hearing Grant tell Dina that he had clocked it. She wants a man who's confident about her. If he's impacted by other people's opinions, then that wasn't the guy for her anyway. DLP asks her how she feels about seeing Grant. She wants him to take accountability. Her frustrations with Grant were valid. She was honest and transparent about how she felt. DLP thanks her for being there. Grant is next on the hot seat. Portion 8. We get Grant. DLP brings him out. And he, when he comes out, we get another shot of our pit dweller sign, the 4TGR, for the Grant Reasons sign. So it was featured twice. 2 shots. It got almost as many shots as Akeem Moulton. Then we see Grant in the hot seat. They compliment each other's suits. DLP asks him how it feels to be back with the women. And he's like, they look stunning. It's an honor to be here with them. DLP asks him what his first impressions were. I was nervous. And I still am in front of all of them, but they calm my nerves. So it's like, not only do they make him nervous, they calm the nervousness. So for Grant, being in front of the women that he has dismissed in a seemingly arbitrary order over the course of this season, they are a net 0. He maintains right in the middle. He gets nervous, but then it's calmed. Nothing. DLP asks him what it was about Alex that got her the FIMP. Now, for those who don't know, the FIMP, a lot of how it's determined who gets the FIMP is by the producers. In some cases, I believe they 100% say this person is winning the FIMP. That could have happened here. But nonetheless, Grant says, she's witty and funny, kept me on my toes. And I believe that deserves a FIMP. She thanks him for a great time and the laughs. She was confident, but understands that he had to make these tough decisions. She thanks him for this amazing journey. No drama whatsoever. Thank you. Everything was great. Everything is beautiful. All of these answers are like completely robotic. Natalie's up next. Anything you'd like to say, Natalie? She goes, no, it was just a shock to get sent home. I would rather had the highs and been let down at a rose ceremony. I appreciated it. Huh? Nothing? Bailey, they laugh about all the selfies she took and her single tear and her bob haircut. And she says, had a good time, enjoyed the moments, talked about not liking sauce. And she appreciated those moments for making her feel seen. She at least gets in some little quirkiness here about talking about their sauces. But again, this is the automaton. I had a good time. We laughed. We did fun things. Thank you. It was a great experience. Dina then comes up. She's like, I have all nice things to say too. Everybody's already said them. But she's like, I remember when he sent me home, he said, it's not because of anything to do with your family. She was shocked. But then she watched the next episode and he said if it was that it was a make or break moment for him with the family. And she was shocked by it because he never told her that. She apologizes if she made him feel that he couldn't express that to her and produces tears. I thought she was angling here to set up an attack to be like, you know, he told me one thing, but then did the other or whatever, vice versa, I guess. And instead she issues her own apology saying it was me. This is on me. Unbelievable. What a great play. Grant then says the family wasn't the reason. It was just what was best for him. She says, you never mentioned the family. It should have been a bigger deal. He says there was plenty of time if they wound up together to meet the family. I was thinking more about how she was feeling in that moment. And this little dance they're doing is really beautiful. She's like, you know, I apologize if I made you feel that way. She gets the tears. We get the sympathy, but she has kind of issued the attack. He has to answer for it. And Grant says the family wasn't the reason. It was just what was best for him. So he's maintaining here. But you never mentioned the family. This is the second piece of the attack. Should have been a bigger deal to you. Then he says there was plenty of time to meet your family. A complete dismissal of the premise of the attack. Family attacks won't work here. Not with me. I was thinking more about how you were feeling in that moment. This is the killing blow. DLP then says he's going to catch Grant up on a little bit that has happened. And we're essentially out of this Dina conversation. He skated straight through it. I don't know what was actually said. All of these conversations, by the way, take place over a much longer period of time than what we see. They're all cut down to some degree, and some are removed completely. Sally Carson had a hot seat on Clayton Echard's season that we just literally didn't see. So he said, DLP says, I'm going to catch you up on some things that have been happening. He says your relationship with Carolina and her relationship with the rest of the women has been a big topic. Where did things go wrong? And he's like, things didn't go wrong. My relationship with other women went right, basically. The other ladies, he says, progressed further than where he was with Carolina. And he says to Carolina, if I made you feel any certain way, I apologize. She says, no hard feelings. I just want to know when you clocked what Dina said. Now she's coming with it. It's literally a 2-sentence or maybe even 1 sentence. No hard feelings, then an attack. And he's like, well, when you're on a group date, things get weird. You can tell if the vibes are off, if there's a negative person. I noticed. And she's like, what was the negativity? Me sitting by myself? And he's like, no, it was your demeanor. He's like, no. Your behaviors weren't negative. You are negative. She says it was hard to be in an environment being so hated. And Allie Joe says, we didn't hate you. You just stayed in your room and didn't talk to anybody else. Serafina says, it's not about hate. You are on high defense. We all try to console you, and you didn't talk to anybody. And she's like, because I didn't want to cry. I didn't want to have to talk about my feelings and cry. And then Alex is sitting between Serafina and Carolina are like having this back and forth. Alex is sitting right in between them and just kind of goes, like leans back and gets out of the way. And that would have been one of my face plays had it not been for Hakeem Wilton. DLP then calms them down and says, this is what's important about the women tell all. It gets everyone a chance to express themselves. This fucking guy, it's like that's what the fucking women tell all is supposed to be about. It gives everybody a chance to express themselves. Like 5 minutes later, he's just packing marshmallow peeps into his mouth. It's absurd. DLP issues a when I was the Bachelor, and he says that he asked himself if he could have done anything different. And Grant says, I have reflected on things I could have done differently. Maybe I could have watched my words a little more, been more precise in how I spoke, but I did my best and I tried to leave with love and compassion. DLP then says, one of the biggest theories in his journey, one of the big stories, in his journey is his family. His sister Taylor's in the audience. We cut to the audience. DLP asks her what it's been like watching the journey unfold. And she says she hasn't seen Grant this vulnerable, and to be this available for all these women is hard to do. And she's proud to say she's his sister. Perfect textbook golden sister play here. DLP also got to learn something new about Grant that stuck with him. His chubby bunny skills. DLP thinks he can beat Grant in a chubby bunny game, and a PA brings out a tray of chubby bunnies, and DLP says he will smash the record of 5 that Grant did with Parisa on that little one-on-one time. And we then watch Grant and DLP force feed themselves chubby bunnies for, what seems like about a minute and a half. And with a full mouth, then DLP starts saying, come back. He's trying to talk with his mouth full. You can't understand what he's saying. They have to subtitle it. It's a bad joke. This was a fail. If DLP had some power, maybe he thought it would be funny. Maybe he thought it was funny even after they did it. I don't know, but he should have vetoed this. He's a kinder, gentler Dark Lord. I'm not disputing that. I think we all agree. He's not like DLH. He lacks an overt, sinister tone. It's there, but it's buried under these kind of jokey, goofy things he does, his Canadian goofiness, if you will. And this chubby bunny thing goes into that category. It's like when he was eating the bucket of Kentucky Fried Chicken on the pool floaty. It's like when he was talking to Devin Strader in a bar and Devin Strader was drinking by himself. It's not like that at all. That was maybe one of the darkest DLH or DLP moments that I think we've seen. Nonetheless, this chubby bunny thing to me was a swing and a miss. I didn't find it funny. It was just kind of like indulgent in a weird thing that, like, he should have done it against Parisa, or he should have called them up for a rematch or something. I don't know. It just wasn't for me. Maybe some people liked it. Portion 9 begins. Grant is still in the hot seat. The chubby bunnies are now gone, but DLP does introduce himself as, quote, your chubby bunny champion. He says there's more we didn't see than what we saw. There's more to learn about all of them. Now, Disney's all new Snow White hits theaters next week, and they have the magic mirror from the movie right there. And ladies and gentlemen, it's a real magic mirror. This is proof magic exists. It's just simply a magic mirror hanging on the wall. DLP makes Grant come over and stand in front of it, and DLP starts magic mirror on the wall, who was the sleepiest of them all. And this is basically a kind of a sub blooper reel. It's almost like the blooper reel before the blooper reel, but in service of this strange force-fed advertisement for Disney's Snow White opening only in theaters next week or 2 weeks from now or whatever it is. It missed me. I'm sorry to say. I liked getting some of this information about the sleepiest and all this kind of stuff, but it just was weird. DLP can kind of carry it off, but when they make Grant, do one of his memorized lines or whatever, it just doesn't work. Nonetheless, let's get through this. So we see all these shots of people sleeping. I say, is this the blooper reel in my notes? Then we see that Parisa took the most naps and she never naps. Or no, I'm sorry. We see her say that, and then Serafina gets the award. Not that there is one for the sleepiest person. DLP then says, Serafina, I haven't seen that much napping since the men from the Golden Bachelorette. See what I've done there? DLP asks, who was the messiest of them all to this real magic mirror that they used in the shooting of Snow White. Allie Joe, then we see shots of her saying this place is disgusting and there's a stench. They blame Parisa and she's like, no, it's cool to have a few shirts on the ground. And then DLP says she was the messiest. And Grant then talks to the mirror. He's forced to do this. Mirror, mirror on the wall. Who's the cleanest of them all? We did the messiest. Let's do the cleanest. And then we see that Dina does laundry compulsively. At least once a day. She has underwear she says she has never worn because she just keeps doing laundry. And Dina says she has a laundry basket for show in her home, but never uses it because she doesn't like dirty laundry to be in it. And Carolina calls her psychotic. Dina says that she doesn't put laundry in a hamper. She has a garbage can for it. DLP asks, how does she do laundry every day and still be a successful lawyer? And she says, you make time for it. DLP then says, who loved the mirror most of all? And we see a bunch of shots of people getting ready in a mirror. And it's, of course, Grant is the last guy who is looking in the mirror. I just didn't. It served to do multiple bad things. One, it takes you out of the Bachelor universe. And I get that they have got to do their commercials to make their money. I get all that. But the way they inserted this, it was like they had to wheel out this extra thing on set. It kind of like it deconstructs the image, the fantasy of like that little room of the women to all being this place that you want to be. It's like, oh, what are they wheeling in? What is this thing? It also served to force Grant to act and not get paid for it, which I don't like. And it also did this weird thing of like, it took the steam out of the blooper reel. You're showing us the funny blooper type shit, and then you're going to show us another blooper reel literally immediately after it. It was just a miss. It was a bad idea. I don't know how they could have done Snow White. There, I'm sure they had to come up with something about like, how are we going to advertise Snow White? We have to do that. Yeah, I don't know what they could have done else. Like the magic mirror is a pretty good idea, but I don't know. It just didn't work for me. I don't know. Maybe some liked it. It wasn't for me. DLP then says, it's time to put someone to the test. There's one conversation this season Bachelor Nation was screaming to see again. Oh yeah. And then here we go. Magic mirror on the wall. Did Grant really tell Rose that he was thinking of her when he was dancing with Carolina? And even this is like that piece of footage, which went around the internet like wildfire the day after that episode. And everybody has to kind of draw their own conclusion on it. Do you think, I know what Grant said. He said he wasn't telling Rose that he was thinking about Carolina when he was dancing with her, or sorry, that he was thinking about Rose when he was dancing with Carolina. He was just saying it generally applied to all dancing and all people. Think what you will of it. Did he tell that to Carolina, or is that what he meant or not? But here we get the actual footage, and it would have been so brilliant if they would have put this in the show when it mattered, because this trivializes it. It's in a fucking commercial for a movie. Like it trivializes the importance of the reality of that clip so that we, the audience, can actually make our own judgment on it. It undercuts it in some way that makes it seem like a less important moment, or like, whatever, it's frivolous, throw it away. I personally didn't like it. I did like seeing the clip though. So we see it and the whole audience gasps, and then Grant does this thing about bad communication on his part. He apologizes. Rose apologizes. Everything. Even Carolina's like, yeah, whatever, misunderstanding, don't give a shit. DLP then says, now it's time for bloopers. And Magic Mirror plays them. Magic Mirror on the wall. Show us the greatest bloopers of all. Alex can't get the date card out of an envelope. There are a bunch of mispronunciations. There's all kinds of fake words. What is this? Exastrified, sail smoothing, major diddly, rejuvenated, all kinds of funny words, I guess. Parisa using olive oil as sunscreen. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Like, how was that not in the fucking show? It really, really blew my mind that they kicked her off the show as early as they did. Everything she did on camera was pure gold. It was absolutely hilarious. It was inventive. Don't forget, she invented that Marshmallow Peeps eating contest thing, Chubby Bunny. She brought that in. That's her own thing. I mean, what other people do it, but you know what I mean? Then they stole it from her and made other people do it, made Grant and DLP do it. That's her gimmick. She should have been allowed to do it on this night too. But even beyond that, now we're getting confirmation that like she was just electric 24/7. She's bathing in olive oil before she goes out to lay in the sun. Like, how's that not in the show? And why wasn't she allowed to do so much more? This is another problem this show has, I think. And it's top down. It's the people at the very top making these decisions of who to kick off and in what order. When they have somebody who's super entertaining and super funny, they always get rid of them too early. The same thing happened on Golden Bachelorette with a bunch of different guys. The same thing happened on the prior season of Bachelorette. I want to say on Jen Trans. There were a couple of guys early on that you were like, what? He's gone? Anyways, I digress. So we then see Carolina asks if she can make out with him and then smell his armpits, and literally does. They make out and then she like buries her face into one of his armpits and just fucking inhales whatever you're into, obviously. But this was another thing that was like, put that in the show. Why wasn't that in the show? And I think it might have been because it would take away her villain edge or something. I don't know. But it's just more evidence that like there were some players in this season who were just blowing it out of the water. And what is on the cutting room floor, I have no idea. But I feel like there's another show that we could have seen that might have been a lot better. We then see some bugs, some donkeys going wild, some burps. Latia has a storm brewing in her stomach. They're tossing food in each other's mouths. Dishes are breaking. Things are falling down. Horse headbutts somebody. And then overuse of the word literally. It was an okay blooper reel. The biggest takeaways for me were Parisa and Carolina were, I already thought they were great players. They're even better. Portion 10 begins. DLP says, BIP is back this year and it's going to be bigger and better than ever. At the finale, 2 weeks from tonight, there's going to be a huge announcement about BIP. They are shaking things up and they might reveal some Paradise cast members. You never know. And then they cut to Jonathan, Hakeem, and Jeremy sitting in the audience. Of course, they're going to be on it. Now, this thing that he's saying there's going to be a huge announcement, I can only imagine that announcement will be that it is not in Mexico. I don't think they would go so far as to say, here's who the showrunner is, because I don't think most people care about that, would want to know or even know where that guy came from or what it could mean. I think the announcement will be it's not going to be in Mexico. I think the announcement will be where is the location. We don't know. Then we get this teaser for the end of Grant's season. Boats, kisses, Dominican Republic, dune buggy. He's falling in love. There's a yoga date, zip lines, Latia, love level 4s. He can only choose one. He sees a future with Zoe. Storms in the distance. He's in love with multiple women. He can't navigate it. Stay tuned for my demise. That line. Whenever he says that line, stay tuned for my demise. It's just so insane to me. Something really bad must kind of happen in the end. Or is he just being overly dramatic? Is that like he knows it's going to be hard to make this choice and he knows he's probably going to get a crazy edit or something? I don't know. Stay tuned for my demise. Zoe gets a consummation confirmation. We see the lights go out in her room. He doesn't know, Zoe doesn't know that much about him. He's scared. Juliana is broken and trying to fix herself. Tears. He has doubts. He never thought he'd be in this predicament. He's still trying to figure out who he's going to pick. His family starts helping him. His mom asks him to walk away. His emotions are everywhere. Dad tears, dad advice. This decision is the hardest thing he's ever done. Both women are on their way, and DLP needs to know which one to send first. Grant doesn't know. Back in the studio, Grant says his lips are sealed. 2 weeks from tonight, the 3-hour live finale. One of the most shocking endings in Bachelor history. Next week is Fantasy Suites in Dominican Republic for everyone. Here to all of you in Bachelor Nation, I'm Dark Lord Palmer. And that was the end of the Women Tell All. It was an interesting one in one way or another. I will say my MVP was it was difficult for me, but God, it's still, even now I'm thinking, like, I see what I've written down here and I'm like, is that who wins the real MVP? It's like, I don't know. It's too hard to call. So I'm just going to say my preference, my MVP was Carolina. Carolina was my MVP. Is what I meant to say. I just think she defended herself pretty well. She got the better of almost everyone. Dina was the only person who could get over on her and get the audience to clap for her. And Dina was my other selection. It was one of those two. The reason I picked Carolina is because she came prepared. She had that jacket made. She was ready. She is saying to everybody watching the show, I'm a reality star and I'm ready to do this. And that alone to me, like the preparation to come in, to follow a game plan, to have some kind of prop in terms of this trick or treat, which is a costume that she's wearing, I think it just shows an understanding of the game at a very high level. However, the things Dina was saying clearly show she also has a very high level of understanding of this game. The four corners of the show. I got you another week. These are open gameplay things she's talking about, and she's making a distinction between the show and the real world, meaning the show is not real. All that said, I just love Carolina. She was my favorite player this season. I don't know. I'm not even going to say that. Zoe might turn out to be that, but Zoe wasn't here tonight, as we know. So Carolina gets my MVP tonight, and congrats to her. And thank you to everybody for rolling with me on this recap of the Women Tell All of Grant Ellis's Bachelor Season 29. Sans pace case, she is out, getting ready to be legally wed in the eyes of all gods and at least the American legal system. But thanks again for joining me. And I will have a recap out for you on Thursday of this week's Survivor episode 3. I hope you will join me for that. Thanks for joining me.
Please rate this podcast. Please review this podcast. Please get a friend to listen to us. And then please rate this podcast. Please review this podcast.